apps or websites that we see here on the screen became so popular. So let's say you actually have something going on with a piece of technology at home. Let's say you have an Apple TV that won't turn on. You're probably first going to start by reading through what others have done to handle that same problem before actually contacting their support. Because if you can find someone who's gone through kind of what you're going through already, reading their advice could, as you might know, help you a bit faster. And then let's take another example. Let's say there is something going on in your neighborhood. Maybe there's a suspicious person you see going door to door. So you check your Nextdoor app to see if anyone else has kind of seen this similar thing happening or maybe has actually spoken to that person before you actually file an official report with the police. And then lastly, just for good measure, let's talk through one other example. Let's say maybe you're in a new place and you're looking for a good new restaurant to try. You're probably going to look on, Yelp or Google reviews to actually hear from others around their specific experiences with the restaurants that are nearby. And all of these examples really show the why behind employee forums. It's in our nature to kind of naturally want to hear from others when we need help or guidance. And employee forums really bring that aspect to our work lives. They allow, employees to get quick crowdsourced help from people they really trust, other employees. And forums also give employees a platform to discuss, the topics that they're really interested in. They can ask questions, and they can even help their coworkers if they had, advice to share, all while enhancing their employee service delivery experience. So if we think back to some of the examples we just talked about from our personal lives, like the Apple customer community, where the person received the help and they never really even had to open a case. This example and some of the others I mentioned just show how powerful it is to really serve up others' personal experiences when it comes to deflecting cases, and it just sparks that kind of service delivery aspect here. One additional thing I want to make really clear here too is how employee forums are different from other collaboration tools we use at work, like maybe Slack or Facebook for workplace. And the big difference to understand here is that employee forums are really targeted around service-related events, and they aren't just general collaboration spaces. So if we actually look to the right of the screen, we have several examples of this. And I'll actually talk through all of these examples just to kind of help connect the dots a bit more. And you'll probably see as I talk through these that there's kind of a general theme. And that theme is that a forum can generally be used when an employee is kind of going through a similar experience, or maybe an employee has similar interests as another employee group. So if we look at what's on the list here, a new hire forum could be helpful maybe for people who are new to the company. Maybe they want to ask about things like badge reprints if they don't like their picture, or maybe, you'd like to give expats an opportunity to share advice with one another. Another common use case is creating a forum for parents. This is one of those kind of more material moments that matter for employees, and typically hearing about a personal experience here versus just kind of reading through some sort of guide or policy can be really powerful and resonate. Another example is creating a forum for employees within a specific location or a community to really kind of dig in and discuss things that are going on locally. You could also create a forum focused on volunteering and organizing efforts around that. And then for any employee resource or interest groups, like we see here on the slide, the Women in Technology or Disabilities Awareness Groups, to really give them a space to collaborate and plan. And then last on this list is leadership updates. So for example, leaders could be given publish rights to post blogs within a forum to really kind of share updates and connect with employees and push out information. And what I would say is that, that was the last on our list of examples. But I'd point out that this list is definitely not exhaustive. There are lots more examples and different ways to be creative using forums. So this was really kind of just to spark ideas amongst our group and kind of get everyone in the right mindset. And actually, one thing I'd ask is that if anyone is considering using forums, or maybe you're already using forums, if you could just add a comment to our event page on community and share your use cases, I think it would be kind of fun to just see what everyone else is doing and collaborate a bit on use cases after the session. Okay, So now, what do employee forums actually look like? So I have this screenshot that I'll walk you through to give kind of a preview before I actually give a live demo. And I will start with the top of the screen. So what you'll probably notice is that the very top of this screen looks pretty familiar. It is actually displaying within our Employee Service Center. So we kind of see that standard top navigation where we're able to access our to-dos or our profile, etc. The next thing I want to point out here is that we have a very large and prominent search bar. So again, this is similar to what you might see on kind of a main landing page for an employee service center. And this, of course, allows employees to search for different things that are within forums. And the search is type ahead. So as you start to type 3 or more characters there, it starts to populate some suggestions for what you might be looking for. Next, we see this Browse Forums area and that plus icon. And what that does is if a user clicks that, it would expand some available forums. You'd be able to see the icons for those. And by default, it would display up to 8 forums in alphabetical order. And there's also a configuration option for kind of changing that order that we'll look at in more detail later. And then let's say your organization actually has more than 8 forums, you would also see a link to view all of those forums in list view. And those are things that we'll actually look at live when we do our demo. Okay. Next, we have this area here where we see we can start typing a question. So this is one way for me to contribute content to the community if I have a specific question that I want to ask here. Over towards the right, we also see that area where we can actually post question. Post a question, a blog, video, etc. And what this is it's really giving me options to contribute different content types. And we'll dive a little bit deeper into all of the available content types and what that means. But the one thing to highlight here is that this is dependent on a user's permissions and access. So based on certain attributes, you may or may not have access to contribute certain things here. Okay. Next, we see this activity feed area, and what this is allowing users to do is it's allowing them to see kind of different activity and content that's kind of happening within the forum. So you'll notice here that we do have the ability to kind of filter by different forums, filter by content types, change what we're sorting by, and we can even filter by question state. So if we wanted to go in and look at all solved questions, we could go ahead and easily do that. And then lastly, down on the bottom right, we see a leaderboard. So employee forums actually supports gamification. That's one of the features, and we'll dive into that a little bit more later. But this leaderboard is really meant to kind of inspire that gamification and inspire participation amongst employees. So as we can see here, Eileen is the top on the leaderboard because she's been contributing a lot and earning points. So again, this was really just a brief overview meant to give a basic grounding, and we'll dive more into this when we do our live demo later. But next, I wanted to actually talk about how employee forums can drive action and continuous improvement within your service organization. So first off on the list is that you can include forums content in your employee service center search results to help deflect cases. And this is especially valuable for maybe something that's kind of, hot off the press, or there isn't a lot of formal documentation or knowledge articles around yet. And when I walk through my demo, I'll show kind of an example to help bring this one to life. Next on the list, you can also directly harvest or create knowledge articles from answered questions within a forum. So when you actually set up a forum, you simply list a knowledge base for where harvested articles should be created. And then users with certain rules can create draft articles from answered questions. And again, I'll actually show what this looks like a little bit later. Another great thing about forums is that they can provide you with great ideas for possible campaigns. And in a nutshell, if you aren't familiar with campaigns or targeted content automation as it's more formally named, it basically allows you to schedule and trigger content to employees via the portal and via email. And it can also be in the format of banners or videos or calendar items, and you can even assign to-dos as part of a campaign. But I won't go into too much detail on campaigns because it's really a whole separate topic. But what I'd recommend is if you haven't heard of campaigns, go ahead and go out to our article with the links to all of our past sessions, because there are actually 2 really great recorded sessions focused specifically on campaigns. But actually going back to my main point here, employee forums can really be a great avenue for identifying what might be kind of necessary to address as a campaign topic. So if you see a lot of content coming in from employees on a specific topic, and you'd like to address that directly, campaigns are just a really great avenue for pushing information out. Another great insight employee forums can provide is possible changes that should happen within your HR service catalog. So usually organizations, of course, have a set list of services they provide to employees, but there could be gaps in maybe what's directly being offered and what employees are actually needing. So forums can really help uncover those gaps. And then last on the list, but certainly not least, is that forums can really help you understand what is important and relevant to your employees. So I know a lot of time is spent to better understand employees and what they need and what they want. And customers a lot of times host focus groups and do a lot of things to really deeply analyze this. And what I'd say is that forums can help a lot in this space because you're actually able to see what employees are talking about organically, and you can even uncover specific points in their experiences. So just to give an example here, I know one big point is around leaves of absence. This always seems to be kind of a target area of improvement for customers. So maybe by having a new parent forum, you could potentially collect insights from parents who have kind of just recently gone through the leave process and can provide you insights into maybe how to optimize the process. Okay, so shifting gears here a bit, and next I actually want to talk through some of the key features of employee forums and some of the configuration options that are available. And first off, I thought it would just be helpful to start with a kind of quick fact card to ground everyone. So first is that employee forums were introduced in our Madrid product release, and they are a feature of our Employee Service Center. So if you are an Employee Service Center customer already today, you can very quickly start taking advantage of this because as you'll learn once we get deeper into our session, it's pretty simple to kind of implement and design your requirements for this, and it can really add a lot of value. And then last on our quick fact card here is just that if you've ever used our customer community, and actually I'm sure almost everyone who's listening in has because it's probably how you got to this session, you've basically used a form of an employee forum. As you'll probably notice, kind of once we get deeper into the session and once we do the live demo, there are some definite similarities. Okay. So next I wanted to explain the taxonomy options customers have when it comes to forums. And I will first start by kind of equating this to the taxonomy and categorization available for knowledge articles, because this actually tends to be an example that just most people are familiar with when it comes to ServiceNow. So when you think about knowledge, you can of course have knowledge bases, and within the knowledge bases, you can have categories, which can then be multiple levels deep. So for example, you could have a benefits category, and within that, you could also have a dental, vision, or 401k category, just to kind of name a few options there. And the main point that I'm trying to highlight here is that this kind of organization and categorization makes it easier for users to find information. So if you think about maybe if you're browsing a page rather than searching, it's definitely a lot easier to have things organized and segmented rather than having to kind of dig through one massive collection of information. And this same concept applies to employee forums. So it's pretty standard to have multiple forums that are targeted to users based on kind of some similarity, whether it's demographic, maybe based on program eligibility or something else that's universal. If you just think back to some of those use cases that we talked through. And so within a forum, admins can also have the option to create sub-forums. And there's also the concept of topics that you can add to content that's posted to help further classify it. So if we actually look at this slide, I built out an example that's similar to the knowledge one that I just talked through. So you'll see here that we have a benefits forum. And within that forum, there are two subforums, one around retirement and one around health and wellness. And then within each of these subforums, you can see that I added some topics. And then if you just look at the other two examples here on the slide, we have a forum around early career, and a sub-forum specifically for interns with a topic around final intern presentation, since that seems to be a popular topic with them. And then on the end there, I have an example forum that's just based around Office 365. And the point that I was really trying to illustrate here across these three examples is that there is definitely flexibility in how you design your taxonomy. I would say that any organization would likely want and need more than one forum itself, but subforums and topics are, optional and can be used as deemed appropriate. And in general, just looking at the other tips that I have listed in the corner of this slide, is that this is really a situation where it's best to start simple. You definitely do not want to over-engineer this and have, 40 subforums or topics. It's, you could really start with a simple hierarchy or no hierarchy at all, and then over time decide to build it out if you wish. And then one other small point kind of across the board is that you should be employee-centric in any taxonomy classifications that you do decide to make. So going back to what we really talked about at the beginning of this slide, forums should be created for employees who have something in common. They shouldn't be created based on how your internal operations work. So just because your departments are organized in a certain way doesn't mean that's actually how you should structure your forums. You should really be mirroring it after employees and their kind of natural cohorts. Okay, so now I want to walk through the experience for a person who visits the Employee Forums landing page for the first time. So they will first be prompted to confirm their display name and agree to some terms and conditions. They'll also be prompted to confirm their time zone, their profile information, and their notification preferences. And in terms of the configuration options for this process, admins can configure and set those terms and conditions very easily. But alternatively, if you choose, you can also bypass this process for specific users. You can actually specify this within the properties, and you can say that users with certain roles should actually bypass this kind of terms and conditions process. And then in terms of the profile information, you can actually choose to map that from a user's HR profile or another table that's in the system. And you can also elect to make some of these fields read-only or editable depending on what they are. So one example would be, of course, you'd have name that would be non-editable, but maybe you want to give users the ability to actually write a quick bio that's visible within forums. This field would, of course, be set to editable so they can actually add their bio. And when we go through our live demo, I'll actually click through an example profile and we'll look at kind of what this looks like for the user. Okay. In terms of the notifications, this is what the notifications page looks like. So you can see in the top right corner here that employees have a toggle bar available to them to either turn on or off all of their notifications as a whole. And they also have the ability to kind of specifically hone in and turn them on or off for kind of different events or situations. And I would also point out that from an admin perspective, you can view, I think it's all 40 or so possible notifications and the text within them under system notifications and by filtering to the community category. So if you're planning to implement forums, I definitely recommend kind of checking out the notifications and just reading through them to make sure you're aware of what could possibly be triggering as a notification. Okay. Now I wanted to detail out all of the different content types that are available within forums and actually talk through kind of the different actions that users can take on content. So within forums, there are 7 content types available that we can see here on the screen. So we see questions, answers, comments, blogs, videos, documents, and events. And admins can actually configure which of these content types are available at large and within specific forums. And this can also vary by a person's permissions. So for example, if you really only wanted certain users, maybe in a leadership position, to be able to post events or videos or blogs, you could very easily configure that. And then in terms of what users can actually take action on as it relates to this content, as we can see here, users can upvote items, they can mark things as helpful, they can bookmark them to save them for later, they can subscribe, and they can also even report content if they ever need to. And then one other thing I just wanted to quickly address here as an FAQ is whether there is, file size limits or restrictions for videos or documents. And the answer here is that this is actually a property that can be configured, and there are default limits set out of the box, but this is something that can be set by admins. And I guess speaking of FAQs, Kevin, are there any questions that have come in yet via chat that you think would be good to discuss as a group? I'll also circle back later, but wanted to check in.
Nope. So far, the one question that came in, you answered. It was just specific to what products the forums that we were talking about today apply to. Was it CSM, employee workflows? So you've clarified that this is employee forums that are used with the employee workflows, for example, as part of Employee Service Center.
Perfect. All right. Sounds good. I will check back in a little bit later to see what else comes in. Okay, so another really big topic that customers tend to ask about when it comes to forums is moderation. So moderators can actually do a lot, which is really nice. They can ban certain keywords, which is managed by keeping a filter list of all the words that should be banned. And if actually you look at the screenshot here near the bottom of the screen, this message is actually what's presented to a user if they actually try to contribute something that does contain a banned keyword. It's nice because it actually lets them know specifically what's banned or not allowed, and they can kind of fix their post to go ahead and move forward with what they're trying to add. You can also allow users to report inappropriate content, and if something is reported, what happens is a task is actually assigned to the moderator to either approve or reject what's been reported. And then moderators can also ban specific users, and you can even set a threshold for banning users automatically. So let's say maybe someone has had, X number of offenses. I've had to, remove 2 of their posts because they were just inappropriate for some reason. And now, I would like to ban them automatically. That's very easily configurable within the system. Another neat thing you can do is you can actually require approval for all first-time posters, or posters with specific attributes, or even if you feel it's necessary, you can require approval for all posts. And then one other thing I wanted to mention as it relates to moderation is that there are actually 20 out-of-the-box permissions that are basically different combinations of rights. So there's, one permission for read and write across all content types, but there are other permission levels in between. So I know we were talking about an example earlier where maybe we wanted to give, only leadership the ability to actually, create blogs or events, for example. This would be very, very easy given all of the out-of-the-box permissions that exist. Okay, so next up is gamification. So like we talked about a little bit earlier when we were looking at that kind of leadership board that we saw on the main landing page, gamification is a feature of employee forums that really encourages employees to participate and contribute and just share their thoughts and insights. And really how it works is it awards points for certain actions. So like adding, content or commenting, or if your content is marked helpful or bookmarked, you're also awarded points. And along with points, there are different achievement levels and badges that you can even earn. So in this screenshot, Eileen has 2 badges, and it looks like one was awarded for completing her profile and adding a bio, and then one was actually awarded around answers being marked as correct. And as we saw just a bit earlier when we looked at the landing page again, there's also that leaderboard. So again, we'll look at that when we go through the live demo, and I can even click in to show you kind of what some of those badges might specifically look like. Okay, I know we talked a little bit about knowledge harvesting briefly earlier, but just to kind of reiterate and delve a little bit deeper, users with certain roles can create draft articles, and that can be created from solved questions within forums. So this screenshot just shows what it actually looks like once you do this. So as we can see here in the screenshot, the question is actually placed in the short description or the title of the article, and the answer is really placed in the article body. And then from there, the article text can be kind of edited and published following the normal process. And just a tip here, usually I'd say that this would really be used as kind of a starting point for the draft article, and you'd want to kind of make the content more structured and formal because it tends to be a little bit more casual within forums. So you'll notice here in this example, actually, the person who posted this accepted answer, they kind of greeted the user who posted the question. So of course you'd want to, remove this and again make it a bit more formal and structured when it comes to creating this as a knowledge article. Okay. Next, I wanted to show the basic configuration process for creating a new forum. And what I've done is I've added a screenshot and some color coding here to just show kind of where and how some of this information that we actually enter surfaces for employees. So the first field we see here is name. And this is, of course, what appears as the main name that employees see when looking through forums. Next is the description for the forum, which is again employee facing and appears directly beneath that forum name there, as we can see in the screenshot. And then the next field is an image field, and clicking this actually prompts you to select an image from your computer. And we can see that it surfaces next to that name and description for employees. And this icon is also displayed on the main landing page of forums if an employee were to click that browse forums plus icon that we looked at previously. And again, I'll show this piece when I go through the live demo so we can really see what that looks like. The next field we see is order. So again, I think I talked about this a little bit earlier, but basically by default, the order of forums is alphabetical and 8 display by default on that kind of main area where you browse forums. But you can actually assign numerical values here to control that order. So that's where you do that. The next item here is a checkbox around enabling membership for the forum that you're creating. And if you check this, users have to request access to join the forum. And if you do select this checkbox, you'll see another field that will appear here, and you can actually set what approval workflow this should follow. And the standard flow is for this to just be approved or rejected directly by the moderator. And then lastly, the last field that we see here, the knowledge base used for harvesting field is really where you specify what knowledge base those harvested articles should be created as drafts within. Okay, next I wanted to just do a quick mention of some of the additional features to be aware of. So first on the list is that you can actually schedule and deliver targeted campaign content within forums. So this could, for example, be in the format of a blog or an event or a video. You can also make a general announcement within forums. You can also feature content on the main landing page. You can also review search logs to see what users are actually searching for, as well as view logs to see what they've actually viewed. You can also view all user upvotes and marks as helpful and bookmarks to really gauge kind of what certain items are seeing traction and are popular. You can also enable users to mention other users in their posts. And what this would do is it would trigger an email to the mentioned user to actually just get their attention if they've been mentioned within a post. And actually beyond what we've talked about, there are even more features. I really talked through all of the main features, but I'd also recommend checking out our product documentation for even further details as well. So what I can do after our session is post the link to docs to where you can read even more in depth what other features we have. Okay, so next is my demo, and what I'll do is I'm going to transition to show my ServiceNow environment here. So let me just swap my screen.
And Allison, while you're doing that, just a quick question that came up.
Sure.
You want to jump on that one? So it was related to gamification. And the question was, can you turn gamification off completely? And then the second part is, can you turn gamification partially off? Meaning we don't want to do points, but we would want to give badges.
Yes. really good question. The simple answer is yes to both. So you can turn gamification off completely if it's something that you don't want to leverage at your organization. So that is definitely possible. And then the latter is possible as well. So let's say you do want to do just a component, there is flexibility in what you're actually kind of using in terms of gamification. So good
Excellent.
question. Yeah.
Just one other one, if you want to jump on it real quick. It was,
Sure.
can you pin forum content so that it would always appear at the top of a list of posts?
You can feature forum content. So let's say there's something kind of happening where you want it to be front and center for your employees to kind of digest when they come to this landing page. You can very easily feature it. So it would basically appear kind of right here.
Great.
Yeah. Good questions.
That's it for now.
Perfect. Okay. So in terms of our demo, I will first start by walking through the main employee forums landing page. And again, just showing some of the features we saw within those screenshots and chatted about. And I won't necessarily, repeat anything that we went through in the general walkthrough, but I did just want to show a few things in action that we couldn't really fully see through those screenshots. So one thing that I know we talked about a couple of times, but we didn't actually see yet, is what happens when we hit this plus icon next to Browse Forums. So I'll go ahead and hit that. So like we talked about, we are actually presented with kind of the top 8 forums here, and we see the icon that is associated with them. And again, by default, that's alphabetical, but you can very easily configure and control the ordering if you desire. And we also see this view all forums link, and that's because in this specific environment, we've configured more than 8 forums. So if I go ahead and click this, what it does is it shows me a full list view of all of the forums that are available to me. So I have the ability to kind of scroll through this list. It defaults to this list view. I can also toggle to a tile view if I desire. There's also this search bar. So if I'm looking for a very specific forum, I can go ahead and type a keyword in here, and it's going to search across all forums and bring me back with anything that's relevant. So for example, let's actually say that I am looking for this new hire community. Even though it's right there, I'll search for it just to show you what that experience looks like. So as we can see here, it actually brings up the new hire community specifically. I'm going to go ahead and click into that so we can see kind of what the landing page looks like for a specific forum. So as you'll notice here, it looks kind of similar to the main landing page for the overall employee forums, but it's specific to new hires. So I see again that name of the forum, the description, and the icon. And then I also see the specific content that's within this forum that we're visiting. The other thing I want to draw your attention to is that kind of main focal point of this page is have a question, click here to start typing. So what you can do is you can start clicking here, and then you can type in your question. So let's say, I'm in this new hire forum. Let's say I actually have a question that I want to ask. I'm a new hire and I want to get feedback from some of my coworkers on what health plans have worked for them if maybe they have children too. So what health plans have others with children signed up for? So that's my main kind of question title. And one thing that you'll notice is it's actually searching related posts or information within the community in case my question has already been answered and it's duplicative. So it looks like there are a couple of options here that are populating, but none that are duplicative to the question that I'm trying to answer. So I'm going to move forward with my question. And the next thing that I see is I can actually add a topic for my question. So since I'm actually asking about health plans, it's applicable for me to add the benefits topic here to kind of just keep this organized and help people find it easier. And then beneath that, you'll see that we also have the ability to kind of expand and give a description for our question. So this is where you can add kind of additional color commentary. So maybe I want to say, I have 3 children and we regularly visit the doctor. We also have several prescriptions. What's worked well for other families? So that's my question. I can go ahead and post it. And it's now been added to this forum. So anyone who is specifically subscribed to receive notifications for this forum, depending on their settings, could receive a notification that I've actually posted this. Again, this is kind of dependent on user settings. Really in this example, I was just trying to kind of show posting a question and kind of what this could look like from the employee experience. Next, I want to go back to the employee forums homepage and talk through a couple of other things in action. The thing I wanted to highlight live was kind of how this area here works. I know we saw the screenshot and we talked through the ability to filter, but just wanted to kind of show live what this looks like. So I have the ability to filter by specific forums. So you'll see here I have this list of all the available forums, and I can select one of these to filter to if I wanted. I also have the ability to filter by content type. So if I only wanted to look at blogs or videos, for example, I'd very easily be able to do that here. I also have the ability to change what this list is being sorted by. So by default, it's showing me things that have had recent activity. I can also decide to just look at things that are generally popular. And I can also even look at things by the created date. So lots of flexibility here. The other thing I'd point out is this question state filter. I know we kind of mentioned that, but just to maybe bring this to life a little bit, let's say I am an employee and I'm actually visiting employee forums because I want to provide some insight to my coworkers. I see this leaderboard over here and I want a spot on the leaderboard. So maybe what I would do is I would come in here and click this unreplied link to look for questions that I could potentially contribute to. So I'm going to just kind of scroll here and think through maybe what could I provide insight? How could I help one of my coworkers? So here's one that I think I can contribute on. What is parking like at the office? So I'm going to go ahead and click into this. And so it looks like they're asking if it's easy to park at the office and whether there's a fee. So I definitely feel comfortable answering this. I can say, I arrive at 7:30 to get a good spot. All good spots fill up by, let's say, 8:30. There is no fee for parking. That's my answer that I'm going to go ahead and submit. And one thing that I did just for our example is I configured the acronym OMG as kind of a banned word just to be able to show live what it looks like if I try to post a banned word. So again, this is what I've configured. I'm going to press reply, and then you'll see it actually gives me that message that we saw in the screenshot earlier around this being a banned keyword and that I need to remove it if I need to move forward. So now, as you'll see here, if I remove that acronym here and now click reply, it actually allows my answer to be posted directly to Natasha. So one last thing I wanted to show in general before we move to kind of two scenarios is what is available within this kind of forums navigation drop-down menu that we see here. And I would just say that I won't click into all of these pages just kind of for the sake of time, but I will click into one or two of them. So of course, I use this one already, but I can get back to the home page. I can also go to a page specifically where I can ask a question. So I'll just click into that one quickly so you can see what it looks like. So it's a similar experience as what I showed when I was in a specific forum, but this is just kind of a general page. And you'd also go through the step of selecting which forum you'd post that within. I also see this all forums item here that I can click into, and that's what we clicked into in the beginning where we looked at all of the available forums in that list format. You can also do the same for all topics. So I will go ahead and click into the all topics one just so you can quickly see what that looks like. So let's say this organization has decided to add, a myriad of these topics here. This would just be another way for users to navigate and kind of look through what they might be interested in reading about. You can also look through different events that are posted on the community. So this would just take you there. You can also directly click in to view the leaderboard. There's also this page around how to earn points specifically. So if you're curious around the gamification element and you want to know how you can earn points, this slide really outlines that. You can also click into your employee forums profile, and you can also look at your notifications and subscriptions. So what I'll do here is I'm going to click into my forums profile so we can just see what that looks like quickly. So as you can see, I have my picture that's the same from my overall kind of employee service center picture that I've uploaded. I see my name, I see my title, and some kind of foundational information about myself. And I also see this edit profile button. So if I click that, I'll just show you what this actually looks like. And once it loads, there it goes, we'll see that some of these fields are grayed out. And this goes back to the previous point that I made around some of this being kind of mapped from another field and set to non-modifiable. So generally speaking, what would be typical amongst customers is that a lot of this information would really be coming into ServiceNow via some sort of integration with your core HR system. So let's say, SAP SuccessFactors as an example. So this information is kind of read-only and being displayed from there, and that's why it's grayed out. But we do see that we have these fields that are not grayed out. So display name, I could make up a kind of different username for forums if I desired, and then also bio. So if I wanted to add kind of a description here, that's where I would go ahead and do that. Okay, I'm going to cancel out of here and go back and review some of the other components of the profile. Another thing that's neat about the profile is that you can actually see what you've authored. So you can look specifically at different things that you've contributed here within this area, and you have those same filter options available that we reviewed kind of on the main screen specifically for your content. You can also specifically look at featured content, draft content. So one really neat feature of forums is that, let's say you come in here to post a piece of content. Maybe you have blogging rights and you've started to write a blog, but then you actually need to step away. What this allows you to do is save that as a draft and then come back and work further on it once you return. You can also see anything that you've bookmarked here. So that's helpful if you've maybe looked at something and you don't have time to read it right then. You can save it and come back here later. So a couple of other tabs here, you see activity, network, you can see who is following you and who you're following, your different achievements. This ties back to the gamification piece around those levels and badges. So it looks like we haven't gotten a ton of points and we haven't unlocked levels, but this kind of just gives an overview of what that looks like. And then there's also an area for you to look at any events that you've signed up for via the community. So now what I want to actually do is go through kind of two example scenarios. And I'm going to switch tabs here. I'll point out that I'm actually going to use a different kind of demo environment for these scenarios that we've configured a bit further to more accurately show what this process could look like for a live customer. So in this first situation, let's say that I am on my organization's main employee service center landing page. And I am actually going to start with an IT related example in the spirit of kind of our unified employee service delivery experience and portal strategy that really breaks down those silos between departments. So let's say that I actually need help because I just upgraded my Outlook and I'm seeing an error. So I'm actually going to search in this main search bar, Outlook error, and just see what comes up, see what might be able to help me. So it looks like I have a couple of options to choose from, but one thing that's catching my attention is this MacBook users. It looks like this has been a topic that's been added to this community post. I actually have a MacBook and it sounds like this is kind of an easy to understand language, so I'm going to go ahead and click this to see if it might be able to help me. So interestingly enough, it looks like someone has posted an accepted solution and it looks like there's a fix that I can kind of investigate here on this Microsoft site. So this is really just a prime example of case deflection, like what we were talking about earlier. I had an issue, but I really never needed to actually open a case or an incident because I found my answer directly here. It was crowdsourced. Now I quickly want to walk through one more scenario and then we'll shift to FAQs and then any other kind of questions that have come in. So let's say that I am going to be a new parent and I'm looking for advice and I've read through all the articles explaining the actual leave process, but really I'm wanting to talk with someone or hear from someone who's maybe been through this process. And I'm kind of aware of forums and I want to come to the forum to look for content. So in the search bar, let's say preparing for new baby. Go ahead and click search. It looks like I'm presented with a couple of different options. It looks like there's first maybe a blog around how to work while pregnant. It looks like there's information around, gifts from the company store for people who are expecting. And it also looks like there's this event for new parents. I'm really interested in this, so I'm going to actually open this in a new tab and take a look at it. So yeah, it looks like there is actually an event going on in my office to, give parents an opportunity to kind of get together and talk. So I'm really interested in this, and actually, if I click the ellipsis here, I can actually add this to my calendar. So if I click this, it's actually going to download an ICS file for me to save to my Outlook calendar, so I don't forget about this event. So that was one of the things I wanted to look at. I wanted to also go into this blog. This also caught my attention. So yep, it looks like this is a blog that's been written by another kind of parent, and I'm really curious to read this, but let's say maybe I'm heading to a meeting and I don't have time to kind of read through it immediately. What I can do here is I can click here and I can bookmark that again for later. And like we looked at before when we were on our profile, I'd be able to review that from that spot. Okay, so again, really this example just shows, how employee forums can allow employees to kind of communicate around topics on a more human or personal basis, and again, show service organization, what's really on the mind of employees. So this employee blog is really a great example of just kind of gaining that organic insight into what they're thinking. Okay, so that is a wrap on the actual demo. Now I wanted to close things out by going back and talking through a couple of FAQs, and then I'll check in with Kevin as well to see if there's anything that we want to talk about as a group. So let me transition my slides back to my FAQs. So one of the big FAQs that comes in is really what should be a knowledge article versus an employee forum post. And the answer here is that generally knowledge articles are really for kind of sharing information that's more factual. And, employee forum posts are usually, used for expressing opinions or sharing advice or kind of general collaboration. And so, as an example, something that might exist as a knowledge article would be, a policy or specific how-to information around maybe how to navigate within your HCM system. Whereas maybe an example of employee forum content could be, a blog post from a leader or a question around something that's going on at the office. But one thing I wanted to highlight and go back to is, again, knowledge can be harvested directly from your forums. So if you do happen to get content that would be, a good fit for a knowledge article after some polishing, it's very easy to kind of migrate that content and format it as a knowledge article. That's one thing that comes up. Another thing that kind of comes up as a general question, since employee forums do give us that kind of insight and collect, we are able to kind of collect information from employees, is what should be a survey versus an employee forum. So I just wanted to kind of quickly clarify that. The answer here is that really surveys typically give users the option to specifically, rate their satisfaction on, let's say, case resolution. And, the triggering of these surveys can be conditional, and they're generally associated with very specific metrics and scorecards, versus employee forums are really more meant to capture feedback organically. So again, it's going back to looking at what are employees kind of just naturally discussing within employee forums, and that's really what's giving you those insights into kind of what's important or what's top of mind for them. So those were the two specific FAQs I wanted to walk through, but Kevin, are there any questions that we should talk about as a group that have come in over chat?
Sure, yeah, there's one that came up around posting a question and selecting a topic. The question was, do you have to choose an existing one, or will it add a new topic if you type one?
Yeah, good question. So only users with specific rights like admins or, moderators can actually add new topics. And that's really for governance reasons. If you were to open that up, you might have trouble with, tons and tons of topics being added. So what would happen as an end user is you just see what's been kind of configured and it is available. But the plus side there is going back to like the concept that we talked about when we were talking through the taxonomy and the best practices. And really, it's good to kind of start simple there and then build that over time. So as you maybe go live with forums, you start with a couple of topics you really anticipate being popular. And then as you get traction and you see posts, you'll see kind of logical groupings of information and you can go back and add topics. So good question.
And that was it. I think we're caught up on questions.
Awesome, great. Well, like I said, just a reminder, if anyone is thinking about using forums or is already using forums, please add a comment on the community around what you're using it for. I kind of want to open it up and just hear from our customers and see kind of what's going on and what's on your mind. So I'll be watching those comments there, and I'll also be watching for any questions that come in after our session. But thanks to everyone who joined.